So do you know if she's put in her?
Shut the door.
Oo, kaso nga lang.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, no, that's fine. Okay.
If everyone can just mute yourself, but you're welcome to put your hellos and messages in the chat. We always welcome that. We like that engagement. So hello, thank you for joining us today. So welcome everyone. I think that we started a few minutes late, so we can just start, I believe, and then we will have ample time at the end, for discussion and question answer, since we have already we have 165 participants on the call. So welcome everyone. I think you all know who we are. I'm Ivy Cook. I represent Sokugakai International, and I'm the co-chair of NGO CSW New York. And Pamela, you're muted.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Pamela Morgan, and I too am co-chair of NGO CSW New York, and welcome.
So I think we wanted to hold this briefing. Pamela and I are actually on our way to Nairobi tomorrow. And we knew that from last month's monthly meeting that there were so many questions in the chat about this conference. And just a disclaimer, to say from the beginning, NGO CSW is not organizing that civil society conference. We're not the organizer. So we're doing this just based on the information we have, which is probably not fully complete since we are not the organizers, but we're going to give you as much information as we know. And then we want to share some exciting, information about the coalitions that are also being planned there. So if you want to join us on this journey, I'm just looking to see if Memory has joined us. Does anyone know? Office?
Yes, I'm here, Ivy.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I can't see anything like on my screen. So Memory is joining us from Femnet, and she wanted to share or we asked her actually to join us to share about the conference, since she is in the host country itself. So Memory, can we pass it on to you to give some basics about the conference?
Yes, thank you so much, Ivy and Pamela, and welcome everyone.
Oh, you're muted again.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you so much, Ivy, Pamela, and welcome everyone. And welcome to everyone who will be coming to Nairobi. We look forward to bumping into you and possibly seeing you. So I'm going to just maybe share a little bit about the Nairobi conference. So this conference is being held, the objectives really of this conference is to get civil society to input into the Summit of the Future. And for those that have been following, the Summit of the Future has got a Pact of the Future, which has got 5 chapters, and it's also going to be looking at the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration of Future Generations. So this is the 69th, if I'm not mistaken, civil society conference. So there was a question to say, would this conference be held every year? And yes, I think this conference is held every year. Apparently, it's the first time it's being held in the Global South. So for some of us who have not been really at the forefront in terms of this summit, it's the first time we are sort of like participating and knowing about this summit. But there are other organizations which like C4UN, who have been at the forefront in terms of organizing and making sure that civil society participates. They expected there were a lot of registrations, and unfortunately, most of the people realized about this conference a little bit late. I think the information came for most just before CSW, and registration was closed by March. So most people who would have wanted to come did not have enough time to register, and also might not have enough time to fundraise to be able to come to Nairobi. So I think that's one of the things that are really like a letdown for this summit. But nonetheless, there is representation from all the regions. Of course, it's good to know that there is a high percentage of registrants who have registered from the Global South. And unfortunately, Asia Pacific has got the lowest registration in terms of participants who will be coming. When it comes to women's rights organizations and gender equality organizations, there would be an impact coalition, and Ivan Pamela can speak more to that. There are organizations, women's rights organizations, which managed to register, and some of them will be coming to Nairobi. And there are different workshops which are specifically looking at issues around gender and human rights. So we do have quite a bit of a representation around that. There's also going to be a specific, almost like a youth summit, which will be looking into the Declaration of Future Generations as well. So there has been quite some mobilization for young people to participate in the conference. In terms of if maybe let me just go back to some of the questions. I think for what's important to know is that there'll also be the co-chairs. So overall, the Pact of the Future is being chaired by the government of Germany as well as Namibia. So those are the two co-chairs of the Pact of the Future, and they will be in Nairobi. We're not so sure whether the UN Secretary General will be there, but we know that there are going to be some of the missions. So some of the missions, the embassies which are based here in Nairobi or which have offices or representations, will also be attending. We hear that the premises has possibly have a maximum of about 2,000. So not everyone who would have loved to attend will attend, but so we're looking to maybe 1,700 or so, and then the rest of some of the seats have been reserved for the missions and the embassies and some of the UN agencies which have representations, and some which will actually be coming from New York, coming to Nairobi. And really from the co-chairs of the civil society, UN civil society, I think this decision was made so that we are not just speaking to ourselves, but we also have member states and other interagencies represented at this summit. I think maybe I can just stop for now. So some of the events will be hybrid, so there will be an opportunity, and some of them will be screened in the UN TV as well. And I think there will be some at the premises at the UN headquarters there in Nairobi, but some of the workshops will also be off-site. The website is now live with the program, so you can go there for more information. And really the outcome of the Nairobi Civil Society Summit is to have civil society make their inputs into the Pact of the Future. I know there has been a lot of criticism around it in terms of the processes, in terms of how it's anticipated that AI is probably going to be the one. There's going to be an AI system which should be looking at the inputs which should be made. But ultimately, this is the only way that civil society can have a say, because the Pact of the Future is really member states and negotiated by the member states. So it's just an opportunity. And because it's to discuss the future and to activate the SDGs, which we are all working on. So in that sense, this is why most of us are participating and engaging in the process. And this process will lead on to the UN General Assembly in September. So what will come out of the UN Civil Society Conference will be tabled and will contribute to the General Assembly Summit. So far, that's what we hear. But of course, I am not part of the organizing. I'm just part of the host committee based here in Nairobi. But if there are any questions or information, maybe we can find a way to get answers to you as much as we can. So I think I'll end here. Ivy, Pamela?
Thank you, Memory. Yeah, and if you can stay on with us through the meeting, and then we'll have maybe some discussions at the end, and we can all, share in answering and addressing that. But we really appreciate you being here, because you are there in person. And I have noticed in the chat that we have so many people who are represented actually from Nairobi. Thank you for joining us, and even UN Women of Nairobi. From what I understand, you will be hosting an open or safe space or something. Is that right? And so maybe you can put it in the chat as well. But that's what we heard, that the UN Women Nairobi office would be offering a space throughout the conference, the 2-day conference. So thank you very much for that. And so just as a follow-up into the outcomes that Memory was sharing. So the conference outcomes, they said that there are 2 things. They want to create a hub for impact coalitions. And I'm literally now just reading from their FAQs. And these impact coalitions, and you notice that it's IM and then PACT, because it's the Pact for the Future. I think they're trying to make a linkage to the Pact. So in order for the Pact for the Future to be impactful, and for that, we need these coalitions, which are multi-stakeholder coalitions. So they're not just, they're civil society generated, but they're diverse stakeholders who agree to work towards advancing certain key reform initiatives that lead up to and beyond the Summit of the Future. And then the second outcome that they're hoping for is the co-chair summary, which is a record in the summary of the conference itself. And so that's about the impact coalitions. And there was a call for proposals. And I believe that the deadline, again, that was all very quick turnaround, but there was a call, and by April, I think that it had already closed, and NGO CSW submitted a proposal, and around CSW well, as you know, I think all of you probably are aware who are on our listserv that we put out a survey on the CSW and how to make it more effective. And we thought this was really good timing with the Summit of the Future coming up, that we can input into that. And so our idea actually was to build a coalition around, galvanizing support around how can we, revitalize CSW. And then that was sent to, that proposal was sent, and there is a subcommittee that reviewed all the applications. And then they came back to us with the proposal, which we received. And because they had so many applications, from what we understand, that they combined some of the thematics that were very similar. And so, yeah, so that's how we got to what is now being called Gender Equality Impact Coalition, which Pamela is going to share more about.
Thank you, Ivy. And before I get started, I just want everyone to understand that the impact coalitions are really the mobilization implementation vehicles for accountability and for implementation. So they're critically important, because without them, we will again be left complaining about no positive outcomes. Also, to piggyback on what Memory just said, there's going to be a post-Nairobi town hall at the end of May, hosted by DGC, Department of Global Communications. So it's going to be here in New York, and it will probably be hybrid. We're not sure. So for those of you who are not able to go to Nairobi, you will be able to tune in and participate in the global town hall. So the coalitions, I think it's important for us to understand that there's an interconnected part of these coalitions, and gender equality is a thread that should be woven throughout all of them. So I'm going to quickly tell you the names of the impact coalitions. And for those of you who are going, and some of them have Zoom links, I'll tell you which ones have Zoom links. So there's accountability, standards, and monitoring. Artificial intelligence, and that one does have a Zoom link, and it's on the website. Children's rights and participation. UN Charter reform. Youth and intergenerational engagement, collective action for youth, adolescents, and older generations. Arts, culture, and faith-based solutions. And that one has a Zoom link, as does the youth and intergenerational engagement. Peace building, which has a Zoom link. Science and policy solutions for the planet has a Zoom link. Towards the World Social Summit. Underrepresented communities has a Zoom link. Earth governance has a Zoom link. Funding for community action on sustainable development. Gender equality, which is our impact coalition, and that does have a Zoom link. Inclusive global governance. International Anti-Corruption Court. Digital governance and eliminating digital divides. Drug policy for the future. Financing for development and international financial architecture reform. Future generations, and just institutions, and the International Court of Justice. Those are the impact coalitions that will take place in Nairobi. Now, for the Gender Equality Impact Coalition, the co-conveners are Pamela Morgan and Jacqueline Ngiti, who is from the Council of Governors in Kenya. The initial focus of our application was, as Ivy said, for a coalition based on CSW revitalization. And they expanded it when they first received our application to the inclusion of the International Conference on Population Development. And it seemed like a strange match to us but that was what was given to us. Then they morphed it into gender equality in order to have an overreaching theme and impact on gender equality. The Impact Coalition on Gender Equality will focus on governance reform specific to UN mechanisms that affect women and girls and all their diversity, including but not limited to the Commission on the Status of Women, Beijing Plus 30, the implementation of Security Council Resolution 1325, and the International Conference on Population and Development. We hope to have the elimination of violence against women as an overarching theme for all mechanisms. Ivy, over to you.
Okay, and so just to make a clarification, it may be confusing for some people when they heard about the impact coalitions, how are they, they sound a little bit like generation equality, action coalitions, and these are a little different. They're wider in scope, and although it's like multi-stakeholder, they're not going to come up with their own blueprints as they did for the action coalitions, and they're actually taking, each part of the pact for the future. And we need to, though, push for implementation, which means that member states are going to be key here. So we need to, this is something want to, work with, as we want to make sure that gender needs to be, throughout the pact for the future. And so that's why we really thought it was important to highlight it as much as possible. And so now that we have this impact coalition, and I wanted to add that the impact coalitions, again, I have Ishan here and maybe others that I'm missing that are actually from the conference organizing team. So if anyone wants to chime in, please feel free, because again, we're just saying this secondhand. So we might get some of the information incorrectly or not, there could be even more that could be explained. But from what we understand, the impact coalitions, and this really has to do with the space, that is available in Nairobi to hold these impact coalitions in person. This is just the initial start of it. And so they're encouraging everyone to start impact coalitions, but there are criteria. And so I think that link was already shared. So people will have to fill that criteria in order to officially designate yourself an impact coalition, but that it's not limited to this conference. So just wanted to underline that point, that what is being done at the conference is not the limit, that's just the beginning of many more coalitions to come towards September. And also that there are links, like Pamela said, so you can actually sign up. So please do sign up to join these coalitions. And again, anyone, if we have any of this information incorrectly, or if there's more, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. And please, Pamela.
Yeah, I'd like to add that the Gender Equality Impact Coalition starts now, but it's going to go through the Summit of the Future into Beijing Plus 30 and then beyond. So there will be opportunities for all feminists who are interested to have input. This is by no means a closed situation. This is democratically run, and there's room for everyone.
Yes. And also that UN Women, again, has nothing to do with these impact coalitions. There may have been some confusion around that. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Summit of the Future, which Pamela is going to share about.
Yeah, I just want to add that UN agencies and other stakeholders can and are encouraged to join the impact coalitions. Member states, private and public sector, because these impact coalitions are really a very broad range of all stakeholders who are focused on the common good of a particular area. So although UN Women did not set it up, UN Women is welcome to be a participant. So looking at the Summit of the Future, as Memory spoke of, we know that we have a pact of the future. The zero draft was sent out a few months ago. The second version, and it started with, I believe, about 25 pages, and now many more pages have been added. The second version is almost ready, but to the credit of the Secretary General and to the UN, they're waiting for inputs from the civil society conference in order to finalize the second reading and then send it out. So after the Nairobi conference, we will receive version 2 of the Pact for, or revision 2 of Pact for the Future. You know, it's for the future, and it's the summit of the future. So it can become, those prepositions can really get in the way. But the Declaration on Future Generations is a document that the General Assembly committed to adopting, and it will be an annex to the Pact of the Future. And it will be one of the outcomes from the Summit of the Future that will be held the 22nd and 23rd of September. Now, principles that were to have been included were a basic commitment to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights, a commitment to protect and restore the natural environment, a commitment to honor stated commitments in good faith, a commitment to build on and enact existing commitments more effectively to turn words into concrete action. And it should be guided by science and other forms of information with an emphasis on combating disinformation. It should have a commitment to the rule of law, accountability, and good governance, and a commitment to wide-scale inclusion at all stages to build a strong public mandate, combat vested interest, and to ensure that actions are taken on behalf of society. The zero draft is now out, and a link to it will be put in the chat. Upon cursory reading, I feel it is a very good first step in fulfilling the humane principles that were just stated. The fact that it promotes peaceful, inclusive, and just societies. It seeks to implement policies to eliminate gender discrimination and eliminate all forms of persistent historical and structural inequalities, including racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, and all other forms of discrimination, are positive sides regarding the intent. Now, a number of dialogues were held with a diverse set of stakeholders, including youth and indigenous people. It's, when you read it, you can see that this is a very different type of declaration. You can feel the love, compassion, humanity more than I've seen in any document. So please follow the link in the chat and do look at, please familiarize yourself with this zero draft of the Declaration on Future Generations. And the other document that Memory referenced was the Global Digital Compact. And this is an initiative proposed by the Secretary General in his common agenda. And the objective of this compact is to ensure that digital technologies are used responsibly and for the benefit of all, while addressing the digital divide and fostering a safe and inclusive digital environment. And the link to the zero draft of the Global Digital Compact is also in the chat. Now, one thing I do want to add about the Summit of the Future is that there is really no access for civil society to negotiations, that it is all done in private. It's been suggested to NGO CSW that there should be a letter sent in protest of us, of civil society, not being able to serve as observers to the negotiations. I don't know if that sounds like something that you think that we want to move forward, but I'd like to hear your response to that, because it has been suggested to us that there should be a letter protesting the fact that civil society is not going to be able to observe negotiations. Please raise your hands if you have any suggestions. Brenda, and then Sai.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've been lamenting this issue of our representation for a long time, and suggestions were put forth on us having observer status, even at CSW when negotiations take place. That has met with, for lack of a better word, resistance. But I think this matter is no longer up for discussion. Is for us to register our protest that we cannot continue to be, on the periphery of some of the issues that are being discussed. We are very central in the work that is being done by member states and everybody else, and we have a stake in being minimum observer status. But we want to play a active role in some of these issues. So I support us sending a letter of protest, and that is very strong worded, so that there's an appreciation of the work of civil society all around the world.
Thank you so much for that passionate expression of your feelings. Thank you. Sai, and then Gail.
Yeah, hi. I do agree that we do need to send a letter, because I see that a lot of the spaces, open spaces for the nonprofit is shrinking across the world. And it is very important for us to be present when the negotiations are happening, because whatever the decision they're going to take is going to impact us as citizens in the country, and also as a civil society who will be acting on these. And thus, if we are part of it, we will also have the ownership. So I strongly agree that we should send a letter. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Gail.
Thank you. Good morning. When we look at the role of civil society as opposed to stakeholder, in the role of stakeholder, we need to understand that we are not government, even though some of us may be working alongside governments. And the letter should not be an advocate letter, but a letter advising the role of civil society. What is our role? Because we have suggested certain things in the survey, and the survey can give us key points as to how we can proceed. In addition to that, General Assembly is different from commissions, committees, etc. So we have to be aware of our role in each of these areas in terms of international law. We don't want to bind ourselves into something that can tie us down or remove us. As the previous speaker said, that lots of states are trying to block us out now because of the opening we got. We are trying to abuse it, and a lot of people want to rush in without thinking. We have a global standard that civil society agreed on at the our global meeting in 2017 in Fiji. How many of us are exposing ourselves to that standard? Or we just want to go in because of civil society and we just bandwagon in? At the OAS, we have gotten we have great respect. Civil society have great respect at the OAS, our 9th summit that completed recently. We have come alongside high-level government. And as a spokesperson in that arena, I must say thank you to those governments that allowed us, especially the US government. Now, they may be at fault in a lot of areas, but that particular area of having civil society into the doors of governance, democratic governance, is important. Examine how we are being shaped in this hemisphere, and how can we play that role at the UN, because there are many areas at the UN we can sit alongside government, and we don't want to be shut out.
Thank you so much for your passionate words. Thank you.
Okay.
And I want to just turn your attention to Holly Shaw's comment that protests may not be appropriate, but objection may be a better word for us to use. So Holly, thank you. Carmen.
Yes, thank you. I am Carmen Capriles. I'm based in La Paz, Bolivia. My organization is ICUU Women. And I wanted to mention that there is a campaign that is called You Unmute Civil Society, which is it is focused on exactly that, the reducing civic space that we have and the reduced spaces that we have within UN, because we shouldn't civil society as well as the stakeholders need to be in the room and need to be part of the negotiations, at least as observers. So I think if we're going to send a letter, maybe we can do it through the campaign. The campaign is mostly focused on the SDGs, but yeah, also in the other conventions. But I think it's important to work around it, and in order to, because Denmark and I don't remember the other country have already endorsed that campaign, so it already has one of the parties there. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Fatima.
Oh, thank you, Pamela. Thank you. I'm Fatma Aytaç, representing Red Pepper Association from Turkey, Istanbul. Thank you for organizing excellent meetings. I really appreciate the NGO CSW New York group. I would like to talk about the letter again. The relationship between each country and its ruling government, is different. Particularly the relationship of opposition organization with the government is very limited. I mean, we are in such a position in Turkey. We have very limited civic space. Therefore, their arguments are only expressed through the international solidarity. There should be a letter that includes everyone, and the letter should be open to the public and should be shared through social media. This is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. And Ishan, thank you. Would you want to speak about the links that you put in the chat? I think that they are quite relevant to this conversation.
Yes, just sharing the full statement of the Unmute campaign, which has been endorsed by several member states. It's a continued conversation that a lot of us are having, including with the co-facilitators, on how to open up the negotiations. I think it's important to note as well that Nairobi, some member states are trying to say that Nairobi is the only moment for civil society to input into the Pact for the Future and its annexes, but it's very much not. It's not the beginning either. Many people on this call have been feeding into the process since 2022 and even before that in the Our Common Agenda report. So would highly encourage all to continue advocacy with member states as the negotiations are ongoing and Rev 1 is currently being crafted at the moment.
Fantastic. So before we turn it over to Ivy, Sri, and then Ivy.
Thank you very much, Pamela. I'm Sri Sofchan from Huayru Commission, that a global grassroots organization, a supporting grassroots organization. I think I like what Ishan was saying, that we should engage with our member, our government where possible, and through also coalition of government where possible, but also reminding them that when it comes to localization, it's all of us that are our role and our contribution. Look at SDG, we are, going to be left at the bus depot if we are not, together in terms of, our action and so on. So I think that we have to be careful rather than what we call protest, maybe a bit of objection, but also at the same time trying to find all these opportunities to work together with the government and other organizations that have ways to come in and put our language and our concern into the document. And for all of us to work together, and particularly to make sure that the gender dimension is a transformative one and not just a lip service again and again. Thank you.
Ivy?
Yeah, thank you, Sri, for that. And I think that, and yes, we're aware of the Unmute Civil Society campaign, and wanted to again mention that this letter would be specifically to, what unites us here together today is the gender equality component. And so like we really do, again, we agreeing with Sri on the being gender transformative. And so we want to bring that out somehow, but hearing, also what Gail was saying about, advising, being, really the good practices out there of how to work within the UN system. And so I think we need to carefully craft this letter to address that. But I do see hands already going up, and this is open discussion time. We have a little more than 10 minutes left. Goes so quick. Sun Young, then Teresa. We don't hear you, Sun. Unmute.
Yeah. Such an important campaign, the Unmute campaign. I'm Sun Young with the International Alliance of Women and the Coalition for the UN We Need. I wanted to flag two practical things. One is that the Coalition for the UN We Need has been doing consultations for 2 years on a People's Pact, which we hope will be finalized shortly before the Nairobi conference. And so Pamela, you and Ivy would of course have access to that, and you would be able to then share it in this network. It would be good to have a single document in which we put the gender transformative recommendations. The other thing I wanted to flag, and I'm putting it in the chat, is that many of us will not be able to attend the Nairobi conference. And therefore, it's really important that you look at the opportunities to at least follow it, which can be done on UNTV, May 9th and 10th. And if by chance you miss the time zone, remember you can go back to the UNTV and usually capture something that has been done the day before or in a different time zone. The other thing is I'll put in the chat virtual meetings. There is a schedule of about 15 meetings which you can join, but which you need to register for in advance. And I see it's not on the website, so it's something that you can capture here. It is on the program at the very end on the website. So look to the very end of the program, and you will see these virtual possibilities to join and add your recommendations to those sessions, because we hope to have rapporteurs from those sessions also reporting back. Thanks.
Yes, Teresa.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm glad to be reconnected. I attended the CSW in 2012, which is how I was initially connected, but my old email is no longer good, and so I want to make sure that my correct email is available to you. There's a lot going on in Africa right now. The 9th Pan-African Congress is scheduled for late October in Togo. And so there's a lot of activity around that. And I'm wondering how this summit for the future connects with these plans for thinking about a 60-year plan for Africa and other ambitious ideas. So the Pan-African Congress, the 9th Pan-African Congress plan for Togo in late October. Is there any connection with this summit for the future?
So that's something I would want to pass on to Memory, maybe to address if you have any thoughts or if you know anything around that. Would you know? From the UN perspective, I would think that, I mean, for member states, the Summit of the Future and Pact is definitely foremost in their minds right now this year. So I believe they would try to link it in any way possible, but I'm just speaking from, you know, I wouldn't know specifically. But thank you for bringing that up, that conference in Togo and that aspect as well. So Brenda and then Carmen.
Memory's ready.
Oh, Memory, please.
Yeah, yes. So I think you've answered it, Ivy. I'm not so sure about the conference and how it connects with the Pact of the Future. But what I do know is that different organizations, entities, and regions are also contributing, but right now they can only contribute through member states. So I think there's an opportunity, and I can link with Teresa. Then we can discuss more on that.
Thank you. Because South Africa is playing a big role in some ways. Thank you.
Great. I'm glad you'll make the connection. Okay, Brenda.
Thank you. Again, Brenda Madumisa, I'm from South Africa, representing an organization called Wise for Africa. Just a quick question. We you know, there was a whole excitement around generation equality, and we had coalitions coming out of that generation equality. We now have the Summit of the Future with specific coalitions. We are convened by, as civil society in Nairobi, by the UN, I guess. Is there a talk amongst ourselves as civil society of when are we going to convene ourselves so that we shape the agenda instead of following the agenda that is set by others on our behalf? And the second question is really for those who have been long at this, is how are the generation equality coalitions going to be streamlined or collapse, whatever term is appropriate, with this Summit of the Future with the coalitions that now exist? Thank you.
So I'll take Carmen, Sun Young, and then we'll address everything together. Okay.
Yes. Just to give a quick update about Nairobi, there has been a lot of work going on. Although it's a 2-day conference, we shouldn't just think that it's going to be those 2 days. As I mentioned, there's been a lot of work going on in order for this conference to take place. And how are we going to keep on working is they are creating this impact coalitions, and there is, I understand that there is one impact coalition around CSW. So we should all be part, and I thought somebody would be here in this call to kind of like explain who is going to take the lead on that impact coalition and how are we going to engage in that in order to, after Nairobi, keep on working, looking forward to the Summit of the Future, because after that, there's going to come whatever is going to happen after SDGs, basically. It's going to be like the post-2030 process on how to continue with all these agendas that we still need to fulfill for within UN and for countries and for specific agendas. Like, for me, one of the most important is the women's right and gender equality. So I think maybe we should invite someone that is like is going to be involved and going to Nairobi and participating and that wants to lead this. And I think, if
Wait,
I'm not wrong,
can I
it's
interrupt?
around the yeah, sure.
So Carmen, I don't know if you missed the first half of this meeting, but that's what we were talking about the impact coalitions and giving a background. And, you know, the committee had submitted an application and so we are, you know, Pam is the co-convener of the gender equality.
Okay, never mind. That is what, but yeah, thank you.
No, I think it's great that we keep talking about it and we, you know, building interest and awareness I think everyone needs to hear it more than once. So thank you for bringing it up again. So Sunya.
But just to finish, I think we should have a call. We should talk after Nairobi also to continue. Thank you.
Yeah, can I yield the floor to Mavic first?
Yes, please, Mavic.
We're short of time.
Mavic, do you want to unmute?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Mavic from the Global Network of Women Peace Builders. And here I am speaking on behalf of the Compact on Women, Peace and Security and Humanitarian Action, which is one of the outcomes of the Generation Equality Forum. On purpose, we did not call ourselves an action coalition because we wanted a broader representation. And to answer the one of the last questions, we're not going to collapse. We're not going to, you know, discontinue our work as a compact on women, peace and security and humanitarian action. What we are looking for now is to coordinate with impact coalitions that have whose issues intersect with women, peace and security and humanitarian action. This is what we should have done before, and I wish the UN also facilitated this, that the existing action coalition and the compact should be coordinating and not duplicating the work. And I think we should continue doing this. And one more point on the question about our own organizing. We in civil society, in our activism, should be organizing on our own, while at the same time also always finding spaces to engage with governments and UN entities and other multilateral institutions. The reason why we have so many problems, crises, and conflicts in the world is because civil society voices are sidelined. We're very active, we're in local communities, but we don't have a say in decision making. And most of these wars are decided by men, and who focus on who has the most advanced war weapons, who can speak about the greatest casualty, the greatest attacks on another country, not in looking for spaces for dialogue and putting gender at the center of all this decision making. Thank you. Over to you. Thanks, Ivy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mavic. So true.
You're welcome.
Sunya, I mean, I don't know, Pamela, could we give Sunyang just a minute or?
Always.
Okay.
Anyways, I think it is in fact important to bring it all together. And it's so exciting because the impact coalitions can be done at any level. You can do them in cities, you can do them in villages, unlike the Generation Equality Forum action coalitions, which were member state national. So many exciting things are going to happen here. We can mobilize, and I have great faith that Pam and Ivy will be the pillars for us. What I wanted to say about the impact coalitions, that we expect that this will not be coordinated by the UN alone, but that the impact coalitions post Nairobi will in fact be in civil society hands. So that's really important to remember.
Yeah. Ivy, can we ask those on this call who are going to Nairobi to just indicate in the chat? Because it might be interesting for us to, or by a show of hands, how many people are actually going to Nairobi?
Oh, that would be useful to know. Ah. Great.
And a question was raised if it would be helpful for us to have a WhatsApp group for those who are going to Nairobi. So what would the thought be?
Can I just jump in here? Why don't we invite them to join the women's major group WhatsApp?
I think that's
We
a
didn't
good
get
idea.
that. We didn't
And
get
how
that.
can they access
No,
it?
no, but Pam has it. Pam has it, and there's a women's major group WhatsApp group for those attending in Nairobi.
I just wasn't sure how open that WhatsApp group
Women's
was.
major group is the most open as far as I know. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, for civil society, I would do that. Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll
it will
confirm
be,
with the women's major group and get back to everyone, I guess, on that part. Pamela, what do you think?
I think so. And then, so how will we reach the people whose hands are raised? We can send a note out to, if you are going to Nairobi, could you please send an email to info@ngocsw.org so that we will capture your email and then be able to send you the link so that you can join the WhatsApp group.
Yes, if you want to join a WhatsApp group, maybe that's I like that.
Yeah. And Claire, we look forward to seeing you in Nairobi. She can't raise her hand, but we see you, Claire. Okay. So thank you all for joining us today. And it is a joy to be with you. It's a joy to work with Ivy and the executive committee. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Ivy, do you have any words you'd like to add?
No, not at all. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I was very impressed at the numbers again at this last minute call. Actually, we decided was Thursday afternoon and it went out Friday. So thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you and meeting again.
Goodbye, everyone. Turn on your cameras and let's give
Thank
love.
you.
Alrighty.
Thank you
Goodbye,
very much.
everyone.
Thank you for
Thank
And
you.
welcome to Nairobi. It's raining.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Everyone, welcome to Nairobi.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Adiós, adiós, queridas. Adiós a
Ciao,
todas.
Mabel.
Un
Thank
abrazo.
you.
Gracias.
Thank
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
C'est la
Goodbye, everyone.
RDC. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Oops. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.